All right, and it looks like we are live. What's up, everybody? This is your boy Black Magus here with my boy Cardiac, and we are here to do the Spoilercast for Fantastic Four. I intentionally held this a couple of weeks because I didn't want to be that person that, as soon as I saw something, go in and do a spoiler cast. Like I could have done a review, but I'm not that. I don't do a lot of reviews for movies like that. But if I did one, it wouldn't have any spoilers in it. Because I, unlike most of the internet, don't like to ruin things for people who don't want them ruined for them. Because not everybody wants to hear all that shit. Just because you saw it first, don't mean that you gotta, like, put it out there and mess it up for the rest of the people. Don't care if it's the internet and it's whatever excuse. That's just my feelings of that. But I'm done ranting. Mr. Cardiac, how are you doing?
Doing well, fantastic. One might even say it. I'm looking at your I don't know what you call it, thumbnail image here, and I appreciate that it doesn't have any spoilers in it too. Because to your point, it's not just that the people on the internet always trying to rush to be first. It's sometimes even their titles and thumbnails themselves are spoilers. Like there's very little regard
Right.
for
It's like, no.
decency and being nice
And
here.
that's why I try to make sure I put, like, the title that I put and things like this. Like, you know what I'm talking about. That's all you need to know what I'm talking about. I'm letting you know we're spoiling it. So if you don't want to watch, you don't want to be spoiled, you should be cool. You know?
Indeed.
Some courtesy. Some common courtesy. Something that's rare these days. Anyway.
You know what we're gonna talk about anyway? The fact that the MCU is dead,
Well,
and
no, I thought it was the MCU is back because somehow it went completely away, and I didn't hear that news. But now it's
one of
back
those
because
things.
of this.
One of them.
People kill me with that stuff. Like the MCU did. Like, one, y'all don't watch all the stuff, so stop saying that. Most people who are screaming the MCU did, they're not watching it. You're watching the numbers. What I mean by numbers is you're watching how much it made and all of that. You probably haven't seen the majority of these movies. For those of you who have seen them and are screaming that stuff, you're just not caring. You're probably looking for clicks and views. So, like, because there's been some good. We were. So, it's funny because me and you were discussing this after we saw this. We both saw it on Fantastic Four the first day. We were discussing how, like, people were talking about the MCU's, like, dead and all of that, and you think about stuff like post Endgame, Wakanda Forever, Guardians 3, Thunderbolts. Yes, it didn't do financially great, but there's a lot of good properties that have come out since.
Shang-Chi for me personally, and WandaVision and Moon Knight. Sorry.
Yeah, I was just about to say, and you can look at the TV shows too, and you can say the same thing. But everybody's just, I guess, because they're not all making a billion plus in the post-pandemic world, which you know there is context when you think about that. Like, how many billion-dollar movies have we really had post-pandemic? It's not been that many because there was a time leading up to, like, Endgame and a little bit shortly after that. Damn near anything that was a blockbuster was gonna at least make like 800 million, if not a billion. Like all the controversy that Justice League had, the original, it was a damn near $1 billion movie.
Oh, times have changed.
Yeah, so it's just weird. It's just very very weird. I don't get it, but
Well, we could talk more about how the movie fits into the larger MCU landscape in a bit, but I'm curious, what are your general thoughts on the first steps of the Fantastic Four?
I actually really really loved it, that movie. I love that movie. I found it, one, refreshing. Again, going back to the Superman thing, it's nice not to have to go through an origin story and have to be handheld for a third of the movie to make you understand where these people come from, why they're what they are, you know, it, before you actually go to the actual story. You know, I think it's something that has caused a lot of issues with a lot of superhero movies. You know, some have been really, really good with doing it, but it's pretty hard to take a huge chunk of your movie and dedicate it. You know, generally these movies are 2.5 hours. You know, that seems like a long time. That's not a lot of time to fit in what you need to fit in because something's not going to get as fleshed out. And there's the problem where you get some of these movies that weren't as good as they should have been. Maybe, you know, sometimes they're trying to do too much, and this is especially true to me in origin stories. It's like Captain America, the first Avenger. I thought it was a cool film, but a large part of that film was just you watching him become Captain America. It took a good while in that movie to get to the and honestly the action it wasn't that much story and action because of it. Like I don't need it to be action packed all the way through, but the action to me seems shortened by the fact that we're going through Steve's story. It's up to the point where he gets the shield. You know.
Funny enough, that movie is probably the only MCU movie I've never seen.
Yeah, no, I mean it's not a bad movie. It's definitely not a bad movie. But yeah,
I didn't avoid it out of hate. Just by the time I realized I hadn't seen it, we were like 20 movies deep, and I was like, yeah, I don't need it.
yeah, and this, but you know, I'm sure part of your reason why you don't need it is if you read comic books, you know his story. I think the only thing that you might have quote unquote missed was what happened to Bucky and why he the whole deal. Like thinking back, the moment with Bucky, it's kind of a throwaway now, considering how quick it came and went in the movie. And then you circle back now, and it's like Bucky's in everything. You know,
Including Thunderbolts.
yeah, exactly. It's like Bucky is now like a major character, going from being this like guy who was a buddy of Steve to now being a key figure.
I'm not sure if this is the right time to bring this up, but I had mentioned to you, I guess before we dig into this movie itself too deep, the other day that I wanted to talk about this thing I'd heard while I was at work and we were talking about this movie. Somebody had mentioned this idea that the reason that they don't want to get into the MCU or stick with the MCU is they hate the idea that they have to watch like all these movies before they watch whatever the newest is, right? This commitment that they have that they think is needed to watch any particular movie. Like, oh, you want to watch Endgame, you got to watch all 20 movies before. And as you mentioned, as a comic book fan, you said the reason that maybe I don't feel the need to watch the first Captain America movies is because I'm aware of his story in the comics. I would argue not even really that, because I've never read his origin story in the comics either. I think the reason I don't feel like I need it, and maybe this comes with being a comic book fan too, is when you read comics, you should be just kind of accustomed to just jumping into the middle of a story without having to be told what the beginning was. So when I saw Winter Soldier, I don't think I'd ever read a single Captain America comic in my life. I didn't really know anything about him other than he was a man who dressed in red, white, and blue and had a shield. And I didn't really need to know much more. I think they probably vaguely referenced that he was like in the ice or something. I never heard of Bucky when the Winter Soldier thing came up, but they explained that Bucky was his partner, and like they built that up throughout the movie. So I I'm
Now,
not quite sure where this comes from, but maybe it is the fact that the MCU had so many origin stories in general. I've noticed the general audience seems to be trained to think that you are A, required to watch everything, and B, you need to have everything introduced to you from step one onward. And again, if you read comics, that is not a reasonable expectation at all. I jump into books all the time where I've never. I wish I had a camera so I could show you my shelf, but I have like these big sets of the Justice Society of America books. They don't give you origin stories. It's a whole team of motherfuckers I've never seen before. But you know what? I read it. I learned about them along the way, and now it's one of my favorite things I've ever read. Like
yeah.
that is normal in comics. You do not need to start at the beginning, and you don't need all that setup. And I feel weird that a lot of like the mainstream MCU viewing audience hasn't caught that. And again, maybe that's Disney and Marvel's fault for insisting that so many of their movies be origin stories and setting up their universe in such a way where until you see it introduced, it kind of doesn't exist.
So, okay, a couple of things about that. And hearing you say that really cemented this in my mind. Okay, so one, with the Bucky thing, Bucky's, like, transition from original Bucky to what we have now is crazy because Bucky was basically his Robin. And when I say that he was his Robin, I mean he literally was his Robin. He was a kid who named Bucky who fought with Captain America. And then sometime, I don't know when exactly, but it transitioned to Bucky being older, maybe. I know, like, maybe this is something that came about with the Winter Soldier thing. I've never read the Winter Soldier origins. But yeah,
I
Bucky
have
used to
actually.
be, like, just a young man who hung around with with the superhero. Like,
The Winter Soldier stuff comes out of, and maybe I'll put a link in this like we did with the Superman. It comes out of God, I have some of it on my shelf over there. Ed Brubaker and Steve Epting's run on Captain America. So like at the beginning, there's like a storyline that basically retcons Bucky's character a little bit. It makes it so, how would I put it? He's not just like this kid soldier. It kind of introduces this idea that back then he he was presented as a kid soldier for the sake of, political mess or I don't know what you call it, like propaganda messaging for America or whatever, like, for the youth image. But he was also fairly good at like, kind of shadowy, discreet, under the table kind of work. Like it was like Captain America's this bright, shiny image, and yeah, you see Bucky dressed up as a kid for the sake of the imaging, but he was sent to do more assassination-y kind of things.
yeah,
And then
see,
later in the storyline, when it's revealed that he's still alive. That is in that run, by the way. I think it's fucking amazing. I've read like the first 20 some issues. Holy shit, it's really good. But yeah, before that run, I don't think Bucky was seen in that context at all. That's something of a reimagining of his character in the early 2000s. I think it was.
yeah, and even the movie was a reimagining because again, they took him and made him just a part of Captain America's unit, and he became good friends with Steve while they fought the Germans, and then they go on a mission. I feel like this was one of the first times they had faced the Red Skull, and Bucky ended up like, I can't remember if he sacrificed himself or not, but he fell off this train that they were on, and you never saw him again. He fell into like off a train that was going across a bridge, and that was the end of Bucky. Yeah, but he was a grown adult man, and he wasn't a super spy, super assassin. He was just a regular grunt who was oddly enough a part of the Captain America's unit, who also included Dum Dum Dugan. Yes, Dum Dum Dugan is in the MCU because he was in Captain America, y'all. If you didn't see Captain America, you don't remember it. But yeah, they put Dum Dum Dugan in there. Um, but yeah, Like, so things change, but a lot of the stuff that you see in the MCU movies change. But now going to the point of having to see things, it's funny because you mentioned how like maybe it's because of the origin stories, and I would argue that it doesn't matter if it was an origin story or just standalone story. You could literally make the argument that none of the individual hero movies need to be seen to know what's going on. And to a degree, you don't even need to see all of the Avengers movies to understand the story. All you really need to see is the end scenes. Because the whole setup for Thanos, for the most part, was all done through those end scenes, except with the exception of the first Avengers movie and Infinity War and Endgame. How many of those featured Thanos or featured discussions about Thanos in a huge way? Not like
I would argue you don't even need the end scenes.
maybe like Ultron, maybe, but no, like Civil War was his own thing. um, you know, all the individual movies, like they were all fighting their own enemies and going through their own trials and tribulations. Yeah, it was just like at the end you'll see like, hey, we're getting together this group for a threat that's coming. Hey, we got this thing that came from outer space. Hey, this grimace looking guy shows up at the end of Avengers. You know, um, in Avengers, you saw like Loki say, "I came to get this for Thanos." So he established like, yeah, this guy wants this thing and he's gonna come get it if y'all don't give it to me. But yeah, and then like as you go on, it's just like you hear about different stones and things like that. Doctor Strange had a stone in it, so that was kind of, I guess, a tie-in. Um,
I mean, they're connected, but you don't need the connection spelled out for you or anything.
No,
like
you can literally watch maybe 3 or 4 movies to get to Infinity War. I would say you would probably need to watch Thor, because Thor is the first time you were, I believe, actually introduced to the Tesseract. I would say Age of Ultron because again, you got the, you know, stone that brought Vision to life. Doctor Strange at the Time Stone. Uh, you didn't see the last stone until Infinity War. Where did the other stone come from?
I think they had to go to some planet to get the Soul Stone, so I don't know that
No,
anybody had it.
I'm just saying. Other than that's what I'm saying. Like the Soul Stone was there, but there's 5 stones, right? So which
I
stone
want to
was
say
it?
six.
No, 6. So I'm missing 2, and I feel like those were taken care of too. Uh, just by the idea that he'd already had. That I think of it, yeah. He literally already had 3 when he showed up.
Yeah. He had a couple, yeah.
Yeah, so yeah.
I'll say this. Whenever I hear that complaint, like, oh, I gotta watch all these movies, what I would do is I would like go online and like look up a list of like, the movies in order, and I'd pick out a few of them. Like I said, Wakanda Forever or Black Panther 1 and 2 rather. Shang-Chi for me. I mean, if I look at each one of these movies individually, I will argue for most of them, you do not need to watch anything else to watch that movie. You don't need to watch Ant-Man to watch, Shang-Chi. Right? Like you don't need Doctor Strange to watch Guardians. It's just this is. I don't want to be mean about it, but this is like an illusion you guys are putting on yourselves. It's not true that you do need to do that. Most of them are just not connected. I would go even a step further than Blak, because I tend to argue that you don't even need those. Yes, there is. It introduces the stones, and you see these little scenes at the end where Thanos might inquire about them and whatever. I don't think you even really need that to watch the Avengers movies, or including Infinity War. Just when you jump in, you will learn that there are a bunch of stones that have powers, and this big mean purple guy wants them. Like I think if you didn't, and that's why I brought up the Captain America example, where like I didn't know anything about Cap or Bucky or anything like that before getting into Winter Soldier, and I still love Winter Soldier. Like you can just catch on even if you are missing information that has been pre-established. You don't need it. It's nice and it feels rewarding if you've been on the journey. But again, pick up a comic book. That's just not an expectation anybody ever really has. I think when I brought it up at work, somebody had mentioned, I want to say it was Star Wars. I don't know if I can agree with this example because it's been a long time since I watched the originals, but he was like, when you hop in, it's not like you really know who Han Solo and Leia and them are. Like, it just comes as you go along throughout the series.
Yeah, no. Honestly, like, it's funny because with Star Wars, you can eliminate the prequel and you'll be fine. Um, you don't need to necessarily watch any. I'm thinking like the originals, like, yeah, it gives you familiarity with who these characters are, but the story beats, like the way the stories generally flow, it's an adventure. And it's the same thing I said to you last time about most sci-fi and adventure things. We don't know necessarily who these people are, what their motivations are, where they come from, and things like that. We just know that they're in this situation and doing these things in this fantastical world, and you know, there's a plot. That's it. We don't
Yeah.
we don't ask to like get have all the dots connected or feel the need to have everything fleshed out. Uh, I,
And I say that in reference to with Fantastic Four because one of the interesting things about this movie is it takes place in its own universe. And I can imagine seeing somebody say like, "Oh, it's nice to not to have to watch all this precursor stuff because this whole movie is so separate." And I would argue all the movies, well, not all, most of them are separate. There's definitely exceptions where like, I might argue that if you want to watch Multiverse of Madness, you do have to watch WandaVision, for example. There's always exceptions that prove the rule. There are some of them, especially post Endgame, where there is at least one precursor movie, but it's not 10 movies you have to watch one. That's absurd. And if you just don't like these movies, that's fine, but that's just a dumb reason because it's just not true at all.
yeah.
But I guess I didn't give my general feeling for this movie, so I should do that now. I have never been a Fantastic Four guy, period. Even when I got into
This
comics, I've
man
never
is the
gotten into it.
ultimate hater, y'all.
I was gonna say Blak knows I tend to call them, the Fantastic Fours because they just always come off corny and lame, and I've just never liked them. I admit I've started reading Ryan North's Fantastic Four book at the moment, and I enjoy it well enough, but even that doesn't really curb my disdain that much. I enjoy the way he's crafted that book, but still, I'm like, Fantastic Four, trash. So when this movie was coming out, I was like, I'm gonna watch it because I'm a comic book nerd. Like people would ask me about it, especially because I was so hyped about Superman, which came out a week or so before. Some people would ask me, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna watch it because I'm a comic book nerd and I watch all these movies, but I don't really give a shit. If I hope it does well because I'm sick of this MCU is dead discussion going around on the internet the last couple of years. But yeah, I wasn't invested. But all that said, I ended up enjoying it a fair amount. First of all, I had just mentioned that it takes place in its own universe. I appreciate that it has a unique aesthetic. You know, the way the whole, I guess the whole world, at least New York where they were, seemed to be rooted in the 50s with that sort of fashion and architecture. Like that entire look of everything in the movie had that distinct kind of 50s vibe, including the way everybody speaks, by the way. Which is great to me for the sense of variety, right? Like if you pick up a comic book, comic books have different artists, right? Books tend to, well, this is a bit of a gray area, but a lot of books tend to have different vibes and looks to them because they have different artists and writers. So it was nice to see one of these movies have a distinct look. All the sci-fi space adventure aspect of it, fucking great. Like when they went to space, they met Galactus, who was actually Galactus and not a big giant fucking cloud. It felt like something to be in awe of. The surfer herself, like these scenes where she would fly through space, fucking surfing through these, space clouds of dust. The way they used science to solve their problems, like it was all really well done. The personal family stuff we saw with Reed and Sue, I was also into. There's a couple moments with the CGI that are a little. I'll say I was in the theater thinking like this looks kind of like claymation to me. There's a couple moments where it falls apart a little bit, but you know me, I've always been fairly forgiving about CGI because again, we're dealing with stretchy motherfuckers and rock people in space. Like it's not real. So
I give them huge credit for their CGI in this movie. And the reason why is because I was expecting Mr. Fantastic to break way more than he did. And for the most part, they kept it tight. Because maybe it's because they didn't really go too elaborate with using his stretching. But when they did it, it wasn't unforgivable when it broke to me, at least to me.
They seem to protect Mr. Fantastic a bit because like when he was stretching, the cuts were a little fast and it's not like I can see this as a negative a bit. I do like it's not like he did anything crazy. Like he never turned into the classic parachute or morphed in any particularly interesting way.
Stuff. It was practical.
Maybe they didn't feel like they could pull it off. I don't know, but yeah, they protected him. Like if they didn't feel like they could do it well, then I'm glad they didn't try.
And to be honest, did you really need to do a whole lot of the stretchiness with him? Given the situation in the film, I think they just put it. They made it so he didn't have to exhaust it, and I'm glad they did.
Sure. I mean, like I said, I think the team is lame in general. So like, I can't say that I wish I saw Mr. Fantastic stretch more. I'm not that invested in him, but I could see wanting it more, but it was controlled. At the very least, it didn't look bad. And it could have looked really bad. So their decisions worked out fine creatively as far as he's concerned. And the CGI moments I'm talking about don't really concern him so specifically. It would be moments like toward the end when like Ben would hold the baby. It looks weird because obviously the baby is CGI to be able to move the way it was. I assume Ben might have been a little bit, so like it's like CGI on CGI. It gets a little weird in places where there's too much of it.
Again, though, I give them credit because in comparison to the original Fantastic Four movie, where they tried to use the suit, it helped pretty well.
Yeah, it really breaks down to just particular key moments, but like I said, the surfer is all CGI and she looks fucking awesome. So.
Oh yeah, no, they killed it with her. They definitely did kill it with her.
Real main character of the movie to me.
But yeah, it was fine. It's funny. Before we started, you had mentioned you should go back and watch those old Fantastic Four movies, and I was like, nah. One of the reasons I'm like, nah, is with the originals. If you see Fantastic Four on the HDT, it's one of the first movies I've ever saw on a 4K TV was the Fantastic Four Silver Surfer movie. No.
Well, I mean, that's not fair.
No, no,
It's like,
seriously. No. And it's not, I'm not saying it's their fault, the filmmakers, because this was shot for HD. And you can hide a lot of stuff still in HD. You couldn't hide how fake and foamy Ben looked. You couldn't hide things like when there was that like hole in the ground that was like suck the portal in the ground. How it just totally looked like you photoshopped that shit on there. Like, yeah, it's not it's not good. Yeah, Johnny, not everything, all the CGI in that, it's broken badly by 4K. And I think that's another thing people need to understand is that, hey, 4K makes CG a bit more challenging. You got to put in a lot more money and effort. And most studios ain't going to try to spend all that money to, to perfect it. Yeah.
I mean, it's probably part of the challenge they're having now. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not saying that we should use that as an excuse, but don't be surprised. Is all I'm saying.
I mean, I argued that a lot of movies use CGI too much anyway, even in cases where it's not actually needed. So if you can pull back a little bit, it's probably a good thing when appropriate. Like I said, for the most part, this looked pretty good to me. I just don't want to ignore some of the weird CGI moments, but they certainly didn't break the movie for me. I, on the whole, enjoyed it more than I expected to, considering it's the Fantastic Horrors.
Yeah, and I know me, I'm more forgiving of that stuff because I'm not paying attention to the CG. I'm just paying attention to what's going on, period. Like, it's just like, I remember people talking about the rhinos in the first Black Panther. Yeah, they were horrible, but I had to go back and watch to, like, really notice how horrible because I wasn't focusing on that. I'm focused on, like, yo, these people are squabbling.
I think that's part of the reason I think about it too, is because I'll hear in other movies, some recent, some older, like the CGI gets slammed really hard. And I look at this and I'm like, this movie has the same CGI problems a lot of the other ones did. So like,
Yeah.
a little consistency. I mean, I would argue you shouldn't be complaining that much about those either. But
maybe that's the thing. Maybe it's just the case where it's one of those people are just looking for something to complain about. You know, that's just it. People are just gonna look for something to fucking complain about.
probably.
Or people either that or they're just very, cinephiles, super sticklers. Like, it's funny because I was listening to a podcast and they reminded me of something. Like, there are few things that you can go back to and say, damn, they did a good job with the CGI or the special effects. Like, and they mention it too, and it's always the movie I mention to everybody when I say this. It's hard to get a Jurassic Park, y'all. Something that, no matter how old it is, that shit still looks good as fuck. Like, you don't get that a lot.
I haven't gone back, but I was thinking about it
Please
the
go
other
look
day
at
when
Jurassic Park again. That movie
we had talked about.
cheated.
You had told me that there were like more recent Jurassic Parks than I realized, and I was thinking back because I don't really seen the first couple. And I remember
Those
when he said we were talking about it, I thought back and I was like, those look fucking amazing when I was a kid. Now that I think about it,
no the first Jurassic Park movie is like a testament to a mix of practical and computer generated effects. Like that, you know, they were on their shit back then. I don't think they'll ever have that. Gosh, why can't I think of their name? Because they're the most popular CGI studio. They started it with Star Wars. But yeah, no. Go look at Jurassic Park again, people, and then look at the more recent Jurassic Park stuff, and you're gonna be like, why is it so much better? Why does it feel so much better? Like it just, yeah, nah.
If you're a stickler for that sort of thing, I get it. You know, there's people who are audiophiles who hear things that I will never hear because my ears are stupid and shitty. But my only point was like, if you're gonna complain about it, it should be a consistent complaint.
Yeah.
And I do feel like some of the complaints we heard before were just part of the MCU is dead narrative. Maybe that's unfair of me, but I feel like that is generating some of the harsher CGI complaints. Excuse me.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, it very much could be. Like that. But yeah, no, I was fine with the CG. And again, to your point, for all the things that may not look good, Silver Surfer shit was like amazing. Like she.
How did you feel about woke Disney making? No, I'm sorry. About the talking point there that they used Shalla-Bal, a female surfer, instead of the traditional Norin Rad surfer with the silver wee wee.
You know what? I feel like everybody who was complaining about that can now completely shut the fuck up because a lot of people were saying like, "No, this is not the way the proper Silver Surfer is," and there were people who argue like, "You don't know. This might be an alternative universe. This might be a different thing." Blah blah. Now we know that it's not the sacred timeline Silver Surfer. So y'all can shut the fuck up and stop crying that this isn't you quote unquote your Silver Surfer. Although I'm sure now the argument, the goalpost is going to shift to, well, this is the first Silver Surfer we've seen in the MCU.
I would say I feel like the MCU fucked this up, but even if it was the main universe, I still think it shouldn't matter because
No, it shouldn't.
I mean
I
adaptation
agree.
is adaptation, but we forget if you're a comic book fan and you're used to this, we see alternate universes all the fucking time. Like right now, both Marvel and DC in their books have major, like, I don't know what you call them, imprints or whatever. DC has this absolute universe, which is its own interesting universe that handles its main characters very differently. Marvel has its current Ultimate Universe that does the same thing. If you're a comic book reader, you've always just kind of you should, and I don't know why more fans don't do this, but you should have been treating the MCU as its own universe. And to the point where the MCU used to have its own number. For those who aren't like comic book fans, different universes in Marvel and DC have like numerical designations essentially. So the main universe in Marvel's books is Universe 616. The MCU used to have its own specific number. At some point in one of these movies, I remember one of them saying that the MCU was 616. I never knew what to make of that. I thought that caused stupid and unnecessary confusion. But whoever's dumb decision that was aside, you should have always been thinking of the MCU as its own universe and allowed to do what an own universe shit can do.
That's the thing. It is because when you make movie adaptations of comic books, they end up becoming their own thing in a way. Like Superman is about as close as you're going to get to having a semblance of a one-on-one. And I only say that because Corn Sweat Superman is the most similar to things I remember growing up to when it came to reading Superman. But even with that movie, all the stuff surrounded us, like the formation of the Justice League, the way that they're like, laid out, isn't the way that we traditionally think of. You know, their costumes, the way some of them look, like there are differences because it's its own. It's an interpretation that you can't just do a one on one because one, as I've said plenty of times, all the shit y'all be saying that y'all wish was comic book accurate can't be comic book accurate because a lot of that shit just can't work in practical reality, and a lot of that shit on the surface seems cool in comic books because they're comic books, but it's really dumb in real life. Like,
I guess to build up my point, like if you look at the I mentioned the Absolute Universe in DC, the Absolute Wonder Woman book, just as an example, because I realize I said that and most of you probably don't know what I mean. If you read Absolute Wonder Woman, her story is different than traditional Wonder Woman. She's basically the Amazons. We don't know exactly what happens, but they were destroyed. She was raised in hell by Cersei, a character who's traditionally one of her villains. So like her entire background is very different. And nobody complains about that because, again, it's labeled as its own thing, its own universe. We all understand that. So I've never understood why the movies don't get the same thing because they literally are the same as that, designated as their own universe. And to your point about keeping things, let's say the argument is to keep things consistent with mainline universe comics, right? So maybe you think the MCU should be consistent with the 616 universe in the books. That's not going to work either because a lot of these characters have been around for a long time, handled by different writers over the decades. I was going to say reboots and retcons. Marvel doesn't reboot as much as DC does, but there's definitely retcons and whatnot. So like the idea of continuity in Marvel and DC is always a little bit shaky because you'll have stories that have to be like recontextualized or updated. So if you look at Black Panther's history, for example, there's these stories where like, the first time Black Panther met Captain America. At some point, the story gets rewritten so that it's his father that met Captain America because obviously as time moves forward, Black Panther is born closer to modern day, right? So like this idea that you're going to be, consistent with the source material is ridiculous because the source material is pretty fluid to begin with. So
it's been going on for decades, and they've mastered doing that as well.
I don't want to come off if only you nerds read the comics like I'm some expert myself. I'm just saying like I think when you do read them and you are familiar, you ought to be a little more forgiving because it is how it works. So I was not bothered by Shalla-Bal. I would not have been bothered by Shalla-Bal if she had been in the main line. I think it makes more sense too to use her when you see the somewhat of a connection that her character has with Johnny Storm in this movie. I don't know that would have worked as well unless you wanted to make Norrin gay as well as Johnny, but I feel like that would cause other problems with the fan base.
Well, yeah, because he's supposed to be Mr. Lover Man, like, the ladies' man. That would tear, like, a lot of dudes apart if he... yeah.
I will say this in minor defense of that point. I don't think the arguments work here, but there are times where there is a change from, whatever you consider comic book lore that they do in the MCU or other movies where I'm like, I don't see what the benefit to that was. Seems kind of wasteful, kind of random, kind of I would argue making a Taskmaster to that one chick in the Black Widow movie. I like that movie and I didn't hate that character, but like there are times it feels like you're just changing things for the sake of doing it with no real reason. So I don't know. I don't want to completely dismiss it.
It wasn't for no reason. I just think that it was an unnecessary plot tool.
I mean, sure. Like it built into the plot of her widow's relationship with that guy, and yes, it was unfair for me to say there was no reason, but there are definitely times where the movies have changed something from the book that make me think like, no, it feels like we're a little bit flippant about what happens with the books. Like a more aggressive example, I guess, would be the fact that Thor: Love and Thunder is such a goofy comedy movie. When if you read either of the books it's based on, which would be Thor: God of Thunder by Jason Aaron and then Mighty Thor Later by the same writer, those are not comedic books. Which you can tell because Jane has cancer in the fucking book, right? So it's not really funny. So stuff like that, where like they'll make like extreme changes, and it's like,
Well,
but no,
no,
Shalla-Bal isn't one of them. She's fucking great.
the character fit. Um, and
And
again, there
she
was
she she was still in line with Norrin Rad's kind of origin story. It was they pretty much just slid her in and kept everything else the same. So it wasn't really that crazy a change.
right. Yeah, no, all of them have changes. But that's the thing. It's like it's I guess very good selective memory people have because none of these things are done in a way like Captain America and his like special force task team and all of that. That wasn't, you know, his origin.
The
Bucky
MCU
was
itself is
they're gonna change things. The Iron Man thing. Iron Man, his origin is probably close enough to the original as he was caught by some like I don't know if it was a terrorist group back then, but he was captured and he was in a cave. He created the armor and he escaped, but he wasn't an arms dealer.
early MCU stuff was based somewhat on. It's funny, I just said the Ultimate books earlier, but like there was an original Ultimates line in the early 2000s that Marvel did, and the movies are based. I don't want definitely not completely on them, but they're a major inspiration. So the
No.
fact that what's that man name with the one eye?
Yeah,
Fury,
like
Nick
Nick
Fury.
Fury is literally snatched from recent comic book origins.
Yeah, he comes out of the Ultimate lines of book. That's why he's black. And it's funny. I was thinking about this because I was watching this conversation the other day, and it was this younger person who had said he didn't realize Nick Fury wasn't originally black because I guess he started reading comics around the times of the Ultimate books, and then obviously the movies used that version of Fury. So I was like, huh, there's people out here who really don't know that Nick Fury is originally a white man. But again,
Yeah, it's just like the Bucky thing. That was I looked it up. It was 2006 when the Winter Soldier was introduced. So you missed like 50 plus odd years, maybe almost 60 years of lore. No, actually closer to 70 years of lore for a character, but everybody thinks that Bucky is Winter Soldier. And that was never what it was, you know.
nope. Um, yeah, like I said, for me, she's the star. She's great. Again, it feels like grandiose and powerful when she shows up. I remember jokingly saying like I don't know why we needed Galactus in this movie because I was like I'm not even convinced the four of them could beat her alone. Like she comes off strong, threatening. We get this. I'm not sure how much of a play-by-play we've done with the plot, but basically she comes from outer space. She's the herald of Galactus, so she gives them all a warning, and then she dips out. The four go into space and chase her to try to figure out what the fuck is going on, how to deal with whatever a Galactus is. They come upon Galactus devouring a world, and even that, like, the scale feels amazing because even for them as superheroes who are used to crazy things, they're just like in awe and fear watching a whole fucking planet get bodied right in front of them when they arrive to the location in space. And when they finally see him, like he's just, I don't know if you remember the scene, but like he's in this shadow and there's like these lights on his giant body. So it almost looks like he's like made of the stars or something for a second. I don't know how to explain it, but like the way he's cast in the shadow at first,
Yeah.
it's like he comes out of the fabric of space to stand in front of them, and I was like, bruh, this guy's a god for real. You guys are fucked.
By the way, you just reminded me about kudos to this director for all the like Jack Kirby pulls and touches. Because things like that were kind of like Jack Kirby type things. The way he would make like covers. Because I feel like that was a cover. You saw a lot of like Jack Kirby covers or panels being pulled off. Like when in the beginning, when they gave you the brief history of the Fantastic Four in celebration of their anniversary, like a lot of those fights, people were finding like, hey, this was issue such. Hell, I was listening to Jim Cornette, and I think he was saying how he had one of the covers, or was it someone else? It was Jim Cornette or somebody else who collects comic books, saying they had one of the covers that was a fight in the beginning when they were fighting that like big monster, and you saw Johnny like fly up and shoot it with the fire, while the rest were on the ground. Attacking.
Yeah, I think it's their first cover, I think.
It's the moment shot, things like that. Like it was a lot of like, you know, not just the 828, naming the universe after his birthday. Like it was a lot of like nice touches and nods to the creator and his original vision of the Fantastic Four. And that's another thing why I really enjoyed the fact that they set it in the time and setting that they did, because it was, you were going back and you were reading an old school comic book.
Definitely a love letter to Kirby. I think I mentioned too when we were discussing it the other day that like there is this scene when Surfer's flying through the city and everybody, all the citizens are looking up and reacting, and there's this scene where like we're seeing from the view of this one office, and I kind of want to go back and see it now, but like there's this in that office there's this like old school looking comic book art on the wall, and even though I didn't see exactly what it was, I was like that looked a lot like Kirby's art. Because if you've ever seen Jack Kirby's art, it's pretty distinctive style, and classic style is what a lot of the early Marvel stuff is based on. He's I'll say this point for a second, but basically they seem to have put him and Stan into the movie in this scene as a little Easter egg in a way that was really well done. I just loved how much love they had for Kirby. And I don't remember who said it, but the other day somebody said something like, I'm glad that they're giving him that much acknowledgement, because as much credit as people give Stan Lee, and I'm not saying he doesn't deserve any credit, but Kirby was also, one of the people who built what we think of as Marvel. Marvel, not Marvel. Marvel. Kirby doesn't get talked about enough for having basically built up the early Marvel stuff with the Four, with Captain America. A lot of it, really. Like, this motherfucker's a pillar of that place, but we often only really talk about Stan Lee, and I think that's a goddamn shame. Again, that's not me trying to throw dirt on Stan Lee's name or anything. It's just, Jack Kirby, though.
No, Jack Kirby, like, that's one of the reasons why Jack Kirby left, because he wasn't getting the credit that he felt, he deserved, and he wasn't getting the treatment he felt he deserved,
I mean, he was right. So, I mean, I can't blame him. But yeah, so some of the major things we still see in comics now, like the New Gods in DC when he went over there for a while. Kamandi. Kirby gave so much to the industry, and we don't talk about him nearly as much as we should. So it was great to see a movie. I didn't even know they were going to do that, but to see a movie give so much love to him and use his name so much there.
Yeah, no.
I still don't like the Fantastic Four, but Kirby.
Come on, you love Reed. You and Reed are similar, okay? That's why you hate him so much. Deep down.
Can I say
you and him are the same?
Since we're talking, I was, gushing about Shalla-Bal and Galactus. Reed in this movie doesn't have Dick Reed energy to me. At least not the kind of Dick Reed energy I'm used to seeing. There's something about his demeanor. I don't mind the characterization. I like the movie. I like the characters well enough. But I remember, and somebody else kind of echoed this thought before I even said it. When I went to the comic book shop last week, they were like, he has this kind of weird, anxious energy to him. Where I'm like, I'm used to seeing Reed, be a little more take charge, be a little bit more of a I don't want to say an unfeeling asshole, but I was like, something about this Pedro Pascal
No,
personification here that's like a little
he's
throwing
an
me.
awkward dick. That's what it is. Because he's still like, there's still the like attitude of like, because Sue calls him out throughout the movie about it for different things. It's about like you cannot stop thinking things like in a certain way and always like coming up with the solution to things. You always have to have the solution. It was basically what she was saying to him, and you do it in a way where you don't even consider whether or not it affects other people, certain people in a certain way. You know, because it was like, yeah, she was like when she sussed out the fact that he had come up with the way to get Galactus, and she kind of figured it was for their child to be a part of the play, and he tried to play it off like, no, I would never do that, and I wouldn't, but I got to think of these things, like it's a part of the process, he can't, he's that guy who can't help himself. Like he's too smart for his own good. He can't help himself, but to show it, and he tries to hide it, but he can't because it's just not like that's who he is. He's the smartest guy in the room, and he has to let you know it, even if he's not trying to do it just to be a dick.
I mean, yeah, he's still definitely Reed Richards, but yeah, I would still say he
He
doesn't
just
have
doesn't have
the
that cruel edge. Like he doesn't have the arrogance.
right.
And
Like, yeah, he was. It didn't. Again, it doesn't bother me because I'm never really that invested in his character anyway. But I was like, yeah, as much as I always talk about Dick Reed, I'm like, he's not he's not the dick I know and hate, really. So I'm like, I think you had, when we first talked about it, you had asked me like what I think about Dick Reed, and I was like, I was expecting to hate him more. Like he comes off a little bit like a
he has more
I don't want to say
humanity
like
than the real. Real That's literally what it is. It's like Jim. What's his name? Krasinski's Mr. Fantastic in Doctor Strange is closer to the comic book Dick Reed because he was pretty
yeah, I
much
see it.
just that was the comic book Dick Reed. This is the MCU's take on Dick Reed.
You want to make some differences, go for it. So there's him, Johnny. I was surprised to like Johnny. Uh, Obviously, he was still a little bit of the goofball of the group, but you know what? They allowed Johnny to have, I don't know, agency. Like he would investigate things
He
on
was
his own. He
different.
wasn't
He
just an
wasn't.
idiot waiting around.
Yeah, he wasn't an insufferable egomaniacal like asshole. He wasn't full of himself. He was full of himself, but in a more charming way.
He found ways to contribute to the. I was gonna say the quest,
And
like we're on a
it's like
magical
when
quest.
they would call him out for his bullshit, it motivated him to be like, "Look, I can do other things. I'm not just the smart mouth, you know, guy in the group who makes jokes. I can come up with something that's. And you got a bit of his like arrogance when he solved the thing, but that's his nature. But he wasn't a huge penis either.
No, I loved it when he because there's a scene where he tries to chase Shalla-Bal before she leaves, and she says something to him, and he tries to tell this to the rest of the team, and the rest of the team isn't taking it very seriously at the moment. But
Right.
he has a point, and instead of getting mad, he goes and tries to he goes and works on it some more. Even before that, he had already been basically he was trying to translate what she had said, and this was something that he was very specifically taking an interest in even before she ever showed up. Because we see in the scene where he's talking to Reed, and Reed has another recording from deep space somehow. It's really Johnny's the only one who's really working on that problem and ends up solving it. And I love that. Does does it feel like the most crazy, impactful thing ever? Well, it actually was a little bit in the end, but even though it was a relatively small task, it was his, and it gave him something unique to do. Same thing with Grimm. Like we remember that Grimm is the pilot, and we see that like when they're on the ship, for example, he's the one flying it. He's the one in charge in that situation.
Yeah.
And of course, Vanessa Kirby killing it as Sue Storm, the real leader of the Fantastic Four.
Really, I thought her and Johnny were. I mean, not to not say the rest were, but I thought her and Johnny stood out because I think part of it was because I wasn't expecting it.
I expected it a little bit
Especially
with
with Johnny.
Sue. Given how she's written in more modern books, I kind of expect it with her. But because you go, it's funny. I said to you the other day that like I wish I would have read some Fantastic Four because I'm not like a big comic reader for them. I was like, I wish I would have read a little bit so we had more to talk about, some more context. I ended up reading just a couple of quick things. I have a copy of Fantastic Four Full Circle by Alex Ross, and it's sort of this. I don't know if I call it like an homage to Kirby itself. It kind of is. Actually, everybody loves Kirby. It is. It's based off this classic Fantastic Four book called This Man, This Monster by Lee and Kirby. And included in that package, they give you like the original book from, I guess it must have been the 60s or 70s or something. And it reminded me that like, oh yeah, the Invisible Girl over here used to not be that big a deal. I hate to say it like that, but like she was not always the strong woman character we have now.
Yeah.
But now I tend to think of her as like A, pretty fucking powerful in general, and B, a bit of a leader. Like I remember somebody at the comic shop saying it was kind of weird how I think in the situation with the Mole Man or even in space, like she's acting as this sort of I don't know what you'd call her, ambassador of sorts. And I was like, well, to me that makes perfect sense because if you read the Fantastic Four by Jonathan Hickman, she literally is an ambassador. So like the fact that she took on this role in this movie, I didn't give much background. I think she's literally an ambassador to the UN, isn't she, in this movie?
Yeah, she's like the U.S. ambassador for the UN.
And she's the one who brokers the deal with the Mole Man. She's the one who organizes agreements with him. When we go up to space, like I remember somebody pointing this out. When we go up to space and we meet Galactus for the first time, Shalla-Bal says something like, Galactus honors you with his presence or something, right? And who talks? It's not Mr. Fantastic here, so-called leader. It's Sue. Sue is the one like, we are honored, right? Like she's the one immediately starting up the whole diplomacy angle, starting up the communication. That's like when I say she's the leader of the Four, I'm only half kidding. She feels like she's the leader.
Yeah, no, she's that.
Again, part of that might be because this interpretation of Reed is more subdued than normal, but like she to me stands out as like the one. If the Four has a leader, it's her.
Yeah, no, I think it's more of a co-lead, but yeah, she's definitely the vocal, like more vocal leader.
So let's see. Yeah, I think that was all four of them and Shalla-Bal. And Galactus, again, he feels grandiose. He talks about, and to your point about, sticking with a lot of the original old school comics vibe, he talks about the fact that he existed before this universe. Right? So for people who don't know what that means, I'm trying to remember how the storyline worked because I never really read it because, again, I hate these guys. But the idea was that we've had multiple universes before the current one. I know that's probably confusing to those of you who, we talk about the multiverse so much now, but this idea that there was a universe prior to the current one, and there used to be this dude whose fucking name is escaping me. But that dude is the only survivor of that previous iteration of the universe, and he became Galactus in this one, essentially. So they even stuck with like old school comic booky origin shit, which I was a little bit surprised by. Maybe I shouldn't have been, but I was surprised how true to form they kept it with him.
I mean, there's not really much you can do with Galactus. Like, I feel like to go beyond the bounds would be to risk making it seem even more ridiculous.
Well, what I meant was I don't think they even needed to say that, right? But like they kind of stood their ground and was like, yeah, this is what he is. He is what he is. He is the devourer.
Well, and
And
it also was a good. It was a part of his agency and the reason that he wanted like their kid. You know, and it was a good
dude,
motivation for why that would be a thing. Because it's like, yeah, I've been doing this shit for a minute and I'm tired of this. Like, I'm tired of eating. Like,
been doing this shit since before your whole universe existed,
like,
bruh.
I'm
I'm good.
always hungry. Make it stop. How would it feel to always be hungry and can never be satisfied? That, you know,
Which to me, again, I talked about like changes for change's sake. To me, this was a good understanding of Galactus's character, which is it's not that he's so specifically evil or anything.
no, it's his nature.
He's not.
You can't.
Yeah, he's not any more evil than like a hurricane or an earthquake is evil. He just is he's basically a force of nature in himself. He is a function of the universe. He can't really do anything about it.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to his desire to have Franklin, maybe take his place, it's more desperation on his part than just like, oh, I want to become even stronger. He doesn't need to be stronger. He's practically fucking God. What else in that universe could touch him?
Right.
That's not really
You
the point.
can't really stop him. Like to that point, what was their plan? We can't beat him, so we're just gonna try to send him someplace far off where he would take. It would take him millions of years to get back around to us.
Mhm.
It wasn't even a plan to stop him. It was the delay.
Yeah, his voice is well done. I loved Galactus. I had issues with the ending, but on the whole, I thought all the characters were pretty good. We talked a bit about it too. Like, I prefer my I don't know what to call him. I don't want to call him my thing. That sounds weird. I prefer my Ben Grimm a little bit more animated than this one was, but I like things about him, like the scene where he, lifted up the car for the kids and all that. I still liked him. I would have liked a little more, I don't know, New York kind of energy to the guy, but
Yeah,
he's fine.
yeah. It's funny because we talked about this before. I argued that he was a typical New York guy to me. I think that you're being stereotypical and you kind of just wanted like something that you see like the guy in
I
the
wanted him more cartoony.
you wanted to be like the people in the original Spider-Man movie who was like you mess with him, you mess with all of us. You wanted that. Like everybody had that type of New York accent. That's what you wanted.
Yeah. I say that unashamedly. I mean it.
He wanted
I'm dead serious.
New Yorkers. He wanted the stereotype of y'all. Get him.
And you know what I really wanted? I wanted him to say it's clobbering time with some fucking conviction and mean it. Not the way he said it. I was like, come on, bro. Where's the soul in this performance? I don't believe it really is clobbering time.
Who thinks the shit is dumb? Like, how much soul you need for him? Like, no. I would have been just like him too. No, I don't want to say this shit. The fuck? Fuck, I'm running
it's his
around
thing.
screaming like it's clobbering time before I get to a fight. Like,
You know who else said that? CM Punk. And you know what he was? The best in the world. Eat shit. Point proven.
okay, no,
We win.
It's a comic book fan paying honor to one of his favorite characters. Shut up.
For a reason, right? Because clobbering time is great. I'm just saying. I want to believe that it actually is clobbering time. I wouldn't say it's the same thing with Reed, but like I would say he felt a little more subdued as well. Doesn't ruin it, but I could have stood for them to both be a little. Some people might say cartoony. I would say a little more pronounced.
I guess. By the way, on a side note, condolences to CM Punk. Damn, karma came back on
What?
you like a motherfucker. Spoilers for anybody who's into wrestling. So this weekend is SummerSlam,
Sure.
and
What
CM Punk
happened?
fought Gunther for the World Heavyweight title.
Jesus.
Yes, he won,
Huh?
and then a so thought to be injured Seth Rollins came back in and cashed in on him and won the champion for the second time. Seth Rollins has cashed in on a WWE champion at a major event and stole it from them in their winning moment.
Well, I've never liked Seth Rollins, so that makes sense. He always seemed like an asshole to me.
Well, see, there's context to that because when CM Punk first came back, Seth Rollins was one of the people who was really hating him coming back. And, him and CM Punk had a beef. And so did, what's his name? Drew. Drew McIntyre. And CM Punk had messed up Drew McIntyre's championship by helping, basically, what's his name? Become, I can't think of his name right now. Big, tall Spanish guy. God damn it, what's his name?
Damian Priest.
Yeah, Damian Priest. Cash in.
I haven't watched in years. I'm just that good.
Yeah. So it's kind of karma that, he gets cashed in on. So,
Yeah, but those other guys were also assholes. So,
yeah.
point still proven. CM Punk has written a comic book, by the way. I'm trying to remember it might have been. Was it Thor? It might have been Thing. I can't remember. I haven't read it. I should find it sometime.
It was a Thor comic book.
I'm only thinking about it because I don't know who the other creator was, but they had mentioned having worked with him and being a little surprised that the book was so good. So I was like, yeah, I should find it. that it was well written, I should say. But yeah, for me, like when I say those two characters are more subdued than I'd like, that's one of those things where it's like, some people like chocolate ice cream, some people like strawberry. I don't know. Like it doesn't bother me too much. It's not like an objectively horrendous thing. Like we all like the the temperature knob on different settings, I think on the whole, objectively, it still makes for a good movie.
Yeah, no. So
Something we didn't talk about though, Franklin being in the movie. I didn't watch the trailers, so I didn't know that going in. I don't know if you knew.
they never made mention of her being pregnant and having the baby, so that was a surprise. I had to look it up because, okay, so I didn't have to look it up. Again, other media loves to spoil shit.
Thank you for
So,
finding this.
I play this Marvel RPG app, right? On my phone. I think I've sent you pictures of it before. And I told you they're famous for putting stuff out ahead of it being exposed. So of course when it got closer to the Fantastic Four, they started kind of a Fantastic Four theme. And they put the characters in their movie costumes in the game. They'd already been in the game, but they put the MCU version in to promote I guess, to partially promote the film, but also as permanent characters that you can unlock. But one of the characters that they so when they put these characters in, if you go into the list of characters to see what you have unlocked, they always leave the ones unlocked grayed out. And one of the first to pop up that was grayed out was Franklin.
What?
So yeah, so I knew Franklin was going to be somewhere in the mix before the movie because Franklin was in the game before the movie dropped.
It's not Franklin as like a kid, right?
No, it's an adult. It's like a
Okay.
kind of older, like young adult, teenage Franklin to
Mm,
what I think most people in the comic book would know. But
sure.
yeah, they put Franklin in the game. Just like I have a feeling, um, well, just like with Ironheart, they put the hood in the goddamn game before Ironheart came out.
Wow.
And they also put Mephisto in there.
Okay, so the dark side of corporate synergy, I
Right.
suppose.
It's a but Funko Pops. Because remember, I told you Funko Pops exposed the Iron Spider and they exposed the Black Spider Man suit from the last movie.
I see. Yeah, I guess I've avoided it because I don't consume any of that
Yeah,
content.
like if you
So,
consume certain things, like it's, again, what's his name? The what's it called? The Dark Angel or whatever the name of the armor that the girl had in Wakanda Forever.
oh, Midnight Angel.
Midnight Angel. Yeah, yeah, that was a pre-order that exposed that to me. Uh,
Brutal.
I knew everybody who was going to be in What If because Queen Ramonda was one of the first pre-orders for What If. Like, yeah, pop culture like merchandise, fuck shit up big time. Collectible merchandise, especially.
Let that be a lesson to y'all. Do not consume other Marvel content. No, I'm kidding. Don't break my legs, Mickey Mouse, please.
They'll
But
be
yeah.
fine. The mouse will be fine.
So yeah, I guess we came in very differently because when I saw that Franklin was a thing, knowing from the comics that Franklin is extremely powerful, people, if anybody's glanced at the comic, you might have seen the iconic image of I think there's Jonathan Hickman's run this image of Franklin in the universe in his bedroom as a kid under the covers, and he's like created a whole universe with the palm of his hand. So he's like reality warper powerful in the book. So when I saw that they introduced him, I was like, "There's no fucking way, right? Like, why would they bring him in?" And then we saw Galactus wanted him. Like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Because Franklin's character and Galactus's characters are actually pretty linked together in the books. So I was like,
Yeah,
okay,
it is funny
that
in
was
the
bold, but go
it
go
it's
for it.
very funny because in the game, like everybody has like different special attacks that they can do. And one of his, he literally mimics the Galactus and the stars image before he like lets loose like cosmic forces on you.
Yeah, it makes sense. I still need to finish reading that book, but yeah, they are linked. They have a relationship in those books. So once they clicked in my brain why you would have Franklin in a movie that has an actual Galactus who isn't a cloud, I was like, okay, that is a bold, big
God
ass.
damn, you just
That
reminded
is a
me of
swing.
Dumb
You went
Shit.
for it.
Oh my fucking god. They really did make him just.
I mean, I don't know what I thought the plot. I wasn't thinking too much about what the plot would be because again, I haven't read too much of it, so I was like, I don't know what they could do. But I mean, I knew Galactus was going to be in it because I saw the complaints about Shalla-Bal, so I was like, okay, there's a
Yeah,
surfer.
because they never did
Let's
show
herald something.
Galactus in the um, trailers leading up. You never saw. You knew Galactus was there because Silver Surfer, but you never got a shot of him until the movie. And I appreciated what they did with Galactus because they made him a large scale being, but they didn't make him goofy large, which is what you tend to get sometimes. I think in some more modern comic books. I don't know. I don't think I've ever seen a full length Galactus in the Kirby ones. Actually, I think I have, and I think the scale is more Kirby-ish in the film because in the I would say in the 80s and the 90s and then like other properties like video games and stuff that feature Galactus, he was always so fucking huge. All you would get is just an image of his head because he was that huge, like cartoonishly huge. Whereas this
From
one,
what I understand, his size isn't consistent either. Or I'd seen somebody say that like sometimes
maybe
I guess with some
carry
writers
himself.
his
Yeah, it's not
His size might
consistent.
be like linked to how much energy he has, like how much he's consumed.
Yeah, like the size has always been like, at least for my experiences with him, just this like huge scale dude that, yeah,
Yeah, it definitely fluctuates. So, which again, to my point about like insisting everything be book accurate, it kind of depends on the era and the writer and artist. And again, I don't know which writer they were talking about, but like, yeah, there's stories where like he might shrink a bit if he's exhausted his energies too much. So like, there's never really like a standard size for him. I would say.
okay.
I think the size they used for him works considering they did action scenes where they fought him, where it's like, all right, if he was too large now, it would be like
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, because
unbelievable.
other stuff, it was like when they were fighting, they weren't really fighting him; it was fighting his head. Whereas this, like, it made it a reason, reasonable fight. You know?
Yeah, it worked. Again, Shalla-Bal, the real one, man. The scene where she was chasing them through space. I remember it felt like really tense. Like she could get them and she could kill them. I was like, they had to run from that woman. It was great.
Yeah, she
But
was a horror villain.
Franklin being used in the movie is more than just his relation to Galactus. It is interesting because it creates this interesting moral dilemma where, they go to Galactus and they're like, hey man, could you not eat Earth, please? And Galactus is like, sure, just give me your kid.
Yeah,
And of course they say no because they're selfish assholes.
I thought that
So,
was cool how they used that though, and how they were talking about how like, yo, would you do it? And like y'all saying that we're selfish and stuff, but you know, did you do that to your kid? Of course, I'm sure there were some people who said no, who really would. Like, I could think of a particular orange person that would have probably just like, here, you want all of them? I don't want them.
so yes, there's this tension between the four. It's interesting because if you look at the beginning of the movie throughout, the whole world loved the Fantastic Four because, as far as I can tell, they seem to be the only superheroes on this planet in this version of the universe. They seem to be the only ones. So like, they are the biggest globalist celebrities ever. Everybody fucking loves them. They're fucking Queen Di times a million. Uh, Princess Di, excuse me. But so to see the citizens go from loving them so much to being so angry when they come back and they ask like, did you defeat Galactus? No. What happened? Well, he said if we gave him our kid, he'd spare us, but we're not doing that. So bye, right? Like seeing the global change against them for a little while. Interesting. This is one of these moments though where you always have to suspend disbelief a little bit. But to me, this is one of these moments that plays off a little corny because the scene where Sue goes out with Franklin and like talks to the angry mob. I just remember
Yeah.
thinking there's no way at least one of these motherfuckers isn't leaping for that baby, right? Like,
Oh yeah, it's a mob. The next news story is Fantastic Four kills hundreds as they defend.
right? I mean, I don't know, like she could defend herself, put up a force field, whatever. Maybe they actually knew better somehow. But I was like, when she gets up and she starts talking, and this entire crowd goes quiet to listen, I'm like, there's no fucking way a mob would do that. At the very least,
But
they're
again,
yelling over this bitch.
that's the beauty of comic book movies, and that's why, again, all y'all complaining about the realities and like realism and all this of comic books, that shit ain't real. So just enjoy the ride, please.
I mean, like I said, you obviously have to suspend disbelief. Like right before this, we watched, four mutants essentially fly off into space, past the speed of light, and get chased by a silver lady, sent by a giant monster. You know what I mean? Like it's all kind of insane. So I was like, I don't know. Like the extent to which you can suspend your disbelief and what for is a little different for all of us. That one was kind of stretching it for me somehow. It could have been tweaked just a little bit. I was like, can we just have somebody at least try? to like punch that baby or something like
But no,
this whole crowd of New Yorkers and no everybody's this calm.
Look, this is when you should have got your stereotypical New York accent. Because that's exactly what they did. You mess with one of us, you mess with all of us.
But you know what? While I say all that, I do think that scene was played out a little too, cute by half or whatever. I still liked Sue's speech, right? It's this what she said about like, look, I have spent my not entire life, whatever. Like, I've spent years sacrificing so much to protect all of you. The fact is, I'm not gonna sacrifice my kid to save all of you. But you know what? I'm also not sacrificing all of you to save my kid either, because y'all are my family, just like the kid is. Like, I'm summarizing here. She said it very eloquently, but like, I was like, you know what? That's why Sue is the leader of the Fantastic Four. That speech right there. It was well said. It was heartfelt. It made sense. Like as much as the setup for the speech seemed a little absurd to me, the speech itself was delivered excellent.
Yeah, that was a really good moment.
Sue for president.
Yeah. I also love how part of the plan to get rid of Galactus involved making peace with Mole Man.
It came back around.
It really did come back around. Like the peace treaty with Mole Man and then having to use their, world to hide everybody in New York while they did this plan was fucking genius.
And who organizes it? Sue.
Yes.
Because look at Reed getting all emotional. And she's like, no, just get out of here. I'll handle the meeting. Sue does it.
Right, because he hates Reed, like most people.
And Reed doesn't like him back. Which is similar to what I said about the Superman movie with just, instead of, accepting that you're in a world where all kinds of crazy shit happens and has already happened without having to introduce it first. There is a Mole Man. He is a thing. He's under New York, whatever, right? So like once you've already established that and it's just there, you can just use it. You don't have to have some crazy setup for it. They just mentioned it in passing at the beginning. Of course there's a Mole Man. Why not? We're talking about a fucking giant orange rock guy, a dude who sets on fire.
World full of people, underground New York.
Yeah, why not? It's there. It works. Once you accept that you are in a magical, insane reality, the gloves are off. Just do it. And I'm sure it didn't bother anybody.
No, people were laughing in the theater. They enjoyed Mole
Man. 2025, the year of Mole Man. Never would have saw it coming. But yeah, they even make use of a goofy, old school character like Mole Man in a way that makes some kind of sense. That's awesome. Because the natural inclination, honestly, would have been to just cut Mole Man out altogether. Because he's just so old school and so goofy of a character that I could see any other person just saying, no, we're not doing it.
Right.
But they had the balls. And God bless them for it.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of which, them teasing Dr. Doom all through the movie to me was hilarious. Anytime they were at the UN and they were having a speech, they would just give a quick shot of the Latveria like delegation seat being empty.
I would say shout out to Doom. The whole world was in danger and Doom didn't give a shit.
No,
I guess he knew Latveria would be safe somehow.
But that's the Dr. Doom energy you need. He don't fuck with them. And he kept that energy. I don't fuck with y'all.
And hey, we didn't. Well, we're getting him in another movie. I guess that'll be interesting.
Yeah, that definitely will be. Of course, it's going to be an alternative Doom, more than likely.
Well, this is an alternative universe, so I assumed it's the same Doom here.
And that's why I was curious if this is, that Doom.
If not, I feel like it would be pointless. I mean, he already is not from the main universe, so you may as well just use them.
Yeah.
Which I guess Franklin might help explain how it is their universes collide, considering he seems to be
I
extremely
think it's going to
fucking
be
powerful.
that plus the technology that they came up with is
Mm.
going to come into play somehow. And I think that's where you're going to get the explanation of how all these universes somehow are going to collide and change the um, sacred timeline to where everybody's all together, and we got mutants, we got you know basically people who gain their powers through some special means, and all these smart people. You're gonna have the Illuminati fully together, um, all that good
That
stuff.
would be weird, considering Iron Man is one of the main members of the Illuminati and he's dead, unless we're getting a different one. I don't know. I feel weird about that.
I mean, you
I
probably
mean,
ain't gonna
you
have
could do
Reed
like
as you probably not gonna have Reed as a member of the Illuminati, considering that he's a simp.
yeah. I mean, I guess my point is I can't imagine it working. Like
But
this
then
is a
we've already
dark
had the
thing to
Illuminati,
say.
remember?
Kind of, yeah.
And
But
an
they got
alternate.
bodied and bitched out, so I was like,
Did they
but yeah,
ever?
I can't see it because like in the movies, Iron Man is dead. Black Panther is also one of the members, and unfortunately, we don't have him anymore. Reed is a simp. So like the members of the Illuminati that one would know and recognize either are dead or don't exist.
Yeah, because we don't have Captain Britain and whatever.
Black Bolt doesn't exist, and the one time we saw him, he got murdered
Yeah,
embarrassingly. So like, I feel like it would have been really interesting to do an Illuminati storyline, but I feel like the ship has sailed unless you want to do a very different fucking version of them in these movies, which you could.
you
Uh,
did.
I don't know if it's warranted, but you could. Shout out, by the way, to Franklin, who did nothing. Like the whole fucking world is in danger. He just crying and shitting himself like a baby. Amazing. Power of a god. Wasted. Until the very end, of course, where he saved his mother. But like other side of that, he just sat there, useless. Like what the fuck? Worst character. Practically the villain himself.
Nah, he saved Sue. Who needed to be saved? We need
He
Sue.
let her
Sue
die
was
in the
here.
first place.
I mean,
The villain.
he wasn't technically there to know it. Like, he was just a baby in his room.
I guess speaking more to the plot point there too. So once Galactus is like, fuck y'all, I'm coming anyway, they go back to Earth. They come up with this great plan that requires all of this global unity. It was great to see the planet working together. I was a little depressed because when I saw basically they're building this giant machine with the hopes of like teleporting Earth out of the way, hiding it from Galactus. I was like, man, look at all these humans working together. We could barely pull that off during the pandemic, but whatever. Like all these people turning off their lights. It's like, holy shit. It was great to see that, though. It's idealistic, but it was great to see. The thing that hit me hard was when Shalla-Bal shows up and just single-handedly destroys their fucking plan. I was like, this bitch is a menace. She's the greatest. She just swoops in,
Yeah,
flies around
everybody's
fast as
like getting so
fuck.
hopeful. Like, oh, okay, here's the plan going. And like, she just is like, fuck your plans.
Uh, Villain of the year. I mean, she's not a villain by the end, but there's just something about her. She's just great. So that happens. Galactus touches down. We get a fight. Franklin sits around and watches, I guess, along with Herbie. Herbie's great too, by the way. Uh,
He is. Nice,
and it's,
again, the nice touch of the throwback Fantastic Four stuff. The car, having the car in it. Like,
yeah, that they had the
think
literal
because
Fantastic car.
unless you've ever seen the old cartoons, you probably would have never knew that that car exists.
I remember when I saw that they were flying in the actual Fantastic Car. I think they may even called it the Fantastic Car. I was like, what the fuck? This is somebody here is actually a fan of the Fantastic Four. Somebody working on this movie. What the hell? I don't even know who directed it, but whoever it is, they must be into it, I guess.
Yeah, I forget his name. It's funny because he showed up at the premiere um, at our job. Um, well, the special screening, that is. He wasn't at the actual premiere. I kind of wish he was, but that would have been cool. Matt Shackman.
Shackman, huh? Never heard of him.
Yeah. Um, it's funny because you haven't heard of him, but he's done some stuff that you like. Because he directed 9 episodes of WandaVision.
9 episodes of what?
WandaVision.
Oh shit, he's my guy then.
Yeah.
Love that show.
He did WandaVision, so that's probably why he got the nod.
Whenever people say post Endgame MCU is bad, I'm like, but WandaVision is like a fucking revelation. What else on TV have you seen that's even like WandaVision? Eat shit. Get out of here.
Yeah. He also directed a good amount of episodes of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, so clearly he's awesome.
And it's nice. I'm not sure if this is appropriate to say this. There are definitely times where I look at how one of these adaptation movies go and I think to myself, do these motherfuckers even like the source material? Like, I can understand changing some things, putting your own spin on it, blah, blah, blah. But I'm like, just to start, do you even like the source? Do you even understand what makes it special? I believe this motherfucker likes the source. Well enough, I guess.
Yeah, no, definitely. He likes it. He definitely does
Yes.
care about it enough to make that as cool as possible. And he did the characters really well. The settings very well done. You know.
At the end, we hit on a scene that it's not bad, but again, it's my nitpicks. I just don't like the way the ending fight sequence is composed. I guess
Because you wanted
it's
Ben to do
cool.
more. That's why. This
It's
saying
cool
you
to
wanted
see
Ben to
Galactus.
shine more. Ben didn't
I mean, he
do
should
or
have.
shine more. Like he would have gotten kicked across the planet had he really tried to square up with Galactus. But it's fine.
Him and Johnny. It's cool to see like when Galactus drops down out of the ship and like lands and he starts walking through the city. I'm like, God damn, y'all ain't got a chance. You ain't got. He's big as shit. You're fucked.
Because I love how they like kind of gave you an idea of scale of him, where he looks like he's in the water coming through the harbor, and like you don't see him fully, but he looks at the Statue of Liberty, and he's like pretty much like his head is at the height of the Statue of Liberty. And again, this guy isn't fully out the water yet.
He looks amazing. Yeah, it's a good way to establish scale. He looks amazing. It's great. And this goes to their interesting plan of basically using Franklin as bait. Which I guess to take a step back, because I only touched this glancingly, the relationship between Reed and Sue is really well done. As you say, he admits that, like, look, yeah, I have the dark, uncomfortable thoughts, like, using our baby as bait that make me something of a monster. But you know what? I need to have those thoughts in order to figure out how to get around him. Like that conflict between him and her is well done. And you can see I would say the frustration on her part, the having to accept that you're married to a man like Mr. Fantastic and what his psychology is like and what it means. What was the line? He says something when he's like sitting with his kid, and he says something like, I know there's something wrong with me, and I'm kind of glad it doesn't seem to be wrong with you, or whatever he says. Like he's even kind of cognizant of it.
Yeah, no, he's very aware. That's where the dick is. It's like, yeah, I know. Yeah.
and
it's
it's
like
something
the
I've
way that he
seen
calmly says it. Like, yeah, that's it. Yeah.
in the little bit of Fantastic Four I've read. It's something I've seen in their dynamic too. Where like, yeah, Sue is. I mean, she loves Reed and he loves her, but like, she understands that Reed's brain is Reed's brain, and sometimes that's kind of hard for her to deal with. But she still pushes through it anyway. Uh, it's an interesting relationship between the two of them, where they do love each other, but there is this sort of psychological thing between them that is always a point of tension. So yeah, I think their relationship is handled really well, and even her getting upset about the fact that Reed considers these things, but also knowing that he's not necessarily wrong either. Like that scene where like, because it's interesting. Like Reed never explicitly says a lot of these things out loud, right? But she, as his wife, knows him so well that she already knows what he's thinking before he ever says it to anybody else, and she's already getting mad before he even ever expresses it.
Right.
But even then, she's like, when she's yelling at him, she's like, "I know," and then before he tries to explain, she's like, "I know," and like runs off. It feels like an actual couple that actually knows each other.
Yeah. No, it was a real relationship on screen. Something you don't never. I won't say you don't never see, but you don't never really see a lot of in movies.
I think part of that too is because a lot of times when in the rare case where you do get some kind of a romance angle, it's usually between characters who've like just met and are like going through the beginning of a relationship. Like we don't often get characters who have already been in a relationship for years, let alone married. You know what I mean? So it's always kind of hard to have that kind of dynamic where the characters already know each other so well. So I love that. But yeah, going back to the end sequence there, they go there, they use Franklin as bait in this goofy ass Looney Tunes plan where they like blind him to switch him out. That's all fine, whatever. The thing that I was complaining about, once this plan obviously fails because it was kind of fucking stupid to begin with, where they use Franklin to try to lure him onto this platform where they can teleport him away. When they're trying to fight Galactus, nothing is working on this man, like I think at one point we get a couple of tag teams between Ben and I was gonna call him Franklin. What's his boy name? Johnny. Ben picks up this tanker of oil and throws it at Galactus. Johnny sets it on fire. Galactus is just walking through it, like half on fire. Like, whatever, I'm Galactus. Thank you for this little sweater or something. I'm good. Mr. Fantastic, he has a little bit of an effect when he's like, dismantling some of the shit on the guy's back. Like, most of the things just seem to not have too much impact on him until, he finally gets his hands on Franklin, and then Sue, with the power of motherhood. I said that in a way that sounds a little more disrespectful. It is true that a mother can exceed some limitations when it comes to protecting their kid, to be fair. But I was like, it's even so. And even though I know Sue in the comics is powerful as shit, I was like, this just looks insane to me. I'm sorry. Her basically single-handedly pushing this man back to the, 200 or so miles, however far it was, across the city back to the platform, basically by herself. I was like, this feels weird because you have a team of 4, and it's not 4 people doing this right now. Johnny's not helping because he flew back to the platform to wait so that he could switch the lever. Thing helps a little bit by knocking a building down so that Galactus can't use it as a handhold. Reed went ahead to grab the kid before, so that he'd get teleported away. It would have been not funny, but interesting if Franklin got teleported away with Galactus. That would have been a thing. But yeah, there's just the visual of the sequence at the end where Sue pushes him. I was like, I just don't agree with this. You're a team, at least have, Grim punch his toe or something. I don't know. Like, it looks weird. I'm sure that's nitpicky to most people, but it rubbed me the wrong way pretty bad at the time.
You just don't like to see powerful women. That's all. That's fine. I understand. I understand. You just don't like powerful women.
It's funny too because I've heard for years that Sue is the strongest of the four, and I totally believe them. I don't remember where. Maybe it was one of the cartoons a while back. There's like this scene where she like becomes evil for a little bit, and she like puts one of her force fields. I think it's inside of Ben, and like expands it inside of him to like like hurt him from the inside. I've always thought since then like, damn, Sue is a scary ass motherfucker. So like, I've always kind of accepted that Sue is arguably the strongest, but I was like, even so. I mean, at one point we had fucking Johnny throw Grimm pretty much from space and hit Galactus in the face, and he barely stumbled. So to watch him staggering like a helpless child being shoved away from Sue, I was like, nah.
Hey, me.
No. Which I think opens up an interesting conversation about Marvel's villains in general. A lot of the MCU villains tend to be killed, and in some cases not well utilized. Right? Like you saw Quantumania, right?
Yes.
Okay. The uncomfortable conversations about Mr. Majors aside, I remember watching that and thinking like, I feel like you did a little damage to the brand of what's that boy name? Weird time travel motherfucker. Oh my god, really? What was his name? Jonathan Majors' character, the villain in Quantum. Kang the Conqueror. Thank you. I was like, I don't take Kang as seriously anymore now that I've seen him be defeated by a bunch of ants. Or similarly.
Well, no. In fairness, that was that Kang.
True, but I still think it hurts the image, honestly. Because after that, I was like, I don't like to me that just hurt the brand of Kangs across the multiverse. Similarly, when we watched Snyder's Justice League, and I saw Darkseid get beat up by a bunch of primitives.
Oh my god, Darkseid, no! You didn't even need to see the fight. Like,
huh?
Even if you didn't see the fight, the fact that the reason Darkseid is now showing up is that he forgot where he had left the thing he was fighting for at the beginning. Like, Darkseid's a senile bastard who clearly shouldn't be in charge. That's what Snyder made Darkseid.
And to be clear, I'm not saying the way Galactus was handled in this movie is anything as bad as those two examples. I think those are significantly worse. But yeah, how would I put this? It's like in wrestling. Like I love Rey Mysterio, but I don't want to see him like shoving Brock Lesnar. You know what I mean? Like it like size kind of matters. I don't know. It creates a weird vibe. And I remember thinking at the time, like maybe naive of me, but I was like, maybe Galactus should actually win. Which I also thought during Quantumania, I was like, maybe Kang should just win. I mean, it's just fucking Ant-Man. Who cares? To be fair. But I was like, I don't really want to see Galactus lose to them right now. So I don't know, like it doesn't ruin the movie for me or anything, but it hurts how I see Galactus to see him lose that way. Like it took some of the shine off of him to do that. And I think a little bit of it could have been kept if this sequence had used the other characters visually a bit more.
And I was fine with it. I didn't see much issue. Like, the man was trying to take a kid. Like, shit.
And I guess at this point, since I'm talking about where the this movie fits in the grander scheme of things, as a standalone movie, I really like it quite a bit, actually. We had talked a bit about how this relates to Thunderbolts, and I had been given permission to spoil Sir Blak on this. At the end of Thunderbolts, there is an end credit scene where the new Avengers, as they are basically, in their base, wherever the fuck that is, having their meeting, having their chat. And there's this alert that comes up, and the computer tells them that there's some sort of interdimensional thing coming out of space, and they, I don't know what this is, a telescope or something that gives them this image. We see this ship flying into view, and then when it turns, we see the 4 symbol on it, presumably meaning the Fantastic Four entered our reality. And I had seen Thunderbolts, and I had seen that scene, right? So I admit, part of me was thinking maybe they would lose in this movie, and that's why they came. So I was actually kind of already had prepared myself mentally for the idea that they might lose to go to what's his name, Galactus, and I was kind of okay with it because how would I put this? This might not work well because movies have to be kind of standalone, but when Thanos wins in Infinity War, it's a big fucking thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No. It's funny because even knowing that there was a second part movie and that this fight wasn't over, that shit hit hard. Like, when he...
Right.
That shit, like, that was hurtful.
And I think that's why I bring up examples like Kang or Darkseid, where I was like, I would argue that maybe sometimes the villain, again, it sounds kind of harsh, especially for the sake of a standalone movie, but like, in the long run, maybe they should win a time or two before you stop them.
Well, and again, my argument with Kang would be like, because there's multiple versions of this character, it's hard to say that, at least to me. Now, had we actually got like 4 or 5 Kang movies in, and this motherfucker, like, all of them are just taking L's, then yeah, what's the point? But I think the nature of the character gives it an excuse. That being said, I'm also thinking back to specifically the nature of that version of Kang, and yeah, that motherfucker shouldn't have been losing. That was a scary.
Well, I remember. He had he had a whole armies. I remember at one point when he was fighting Scott, like I think he must have tore off his sleeve or something because Jonathan Major was in crazy shape. I was like, this brother is jacked, bro. Like he should. And he was like fighting.
Like his persona, he was fucking crazy as fuck, and he was fucking brutal.
Yeah.
And yeah, like it's a weird thing.
Bodied by ants.
I can make other counter arguments to it too, because again, I think part of the problem is that it is, sorry to say, but part of the problem is that it was Ant-Man who defeated him, which is not necessarily to say that Ant-Man as a character sucks, but it's not a character that we think of that's good enough to do something like that on his own.
He's not fucking Thor. Like, that's,
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, the way he did it, he outsmarted him, and he did what Ant-Man would do, so he beat him in an Ant-Man way. But yeah, because he's not somebody like that has some raw power that can step up, we dismiss him more. I don't know.
I think rightfully, I dismiss him correctly. That's not even out of hate. I don't hate him, but like Ant-Man should not be beating fucking Kang. I'm sorry. No. It wasn't by himself. He had an army of ants or whatever, I guess. You know what I mean?
Like other people who was rebelling against him. He had been a tyrant, and it was a lot of stuff going on in that movie. It wasn't just a one-on-one thing.
And to be clear, maybe they never use Galactus again, and it's not like they were gonna kill him either way. But I was like, can we just make his, again in wrestling terms?
See,
can we?
Galactus, he's never been someone that, at least when I was younger, he wasn't someone that showed up frequently, and rightfully so, because how many times can you keep having this thing that consumes worlds and you can't physically defeat, show up, and you beat him, like, or you delay him over and over, because, like, eventually it's gonna be like, come on, y'all, like, the inevitability, like, you gotta, like, you can't. It's not that many ways you can come up to avoid the inevitable.
Right.
So yeah, you can't just, like, it's not somebody, and that's why, like, you know, I always thought that he probably should have been the big bad for everybody in the next phase to maybe come together and bring in this Fantastic Four to solve the problem. But I'm glad.
Yeah.
I'm actually happy he wasn't too, because I think they utilized him in this movie the way that he should have been utilized, which is, yes, he's this threat. You figure out how to, like, detain the threat and avoid, you know, what he can do, and then you can just move on.
And I like that they didn't even try to plan to like defeat him. Like defeating him physically was never on the table. You know what I mean? Like so their plan to like originally teleport the Earth away, and then when that failed, teleport him away. I was like, great, that works because you're acknowledging that yeah, y'all not fucking beating this guy.
Right. They
Period.
didn't dispose him like traditionally. And see, one of the things that I would say, if there were one thing that I didn't like about Marvel movies, that would be the one. Um, is how they always dismissed villains.
Most of them are just killed, as far as I
That's
remember
what I mean. It's
in
like
their
they're
first. Yeah.
dismissed. That's what I'm saying. They're killed off, so it's like, you can't do anything else with them ever again. You know,
Um. But yeah, so
mind
like
you,
I
it makes sense in some cases. Like, I feel like it made sense to murder Thanos because, again, having this guy continually come back and somehow getting his hands on these rings or whatnot or whatever, it's kind of stupid.
I mean, he
Like,
he
y'all,
got his full shit in anyway. Like, what else were
right?
he
But it's
literally
like,
won.
y'all can't let him keep doing the same thing over and over again. Like, it's stupid that you let him get to that point again and again. Again, y'all, as I said before, comic books can be stupid. So that's why these movies don't necessarily follow comic books to a T.
Killmonger had a nice thematic like storyline reason for him to die
Yeah,
for his own the themes of like slavery and all and whatever his famous line was why you wouldn't want to go to prison, like yeah, for his character in that storyline it made sense for him to die, as much as people might have found his character engaging and
right.
wanted more. Story wise, it was fine. It made
But
sense.
again, what are you gonna do? She's gonna keep trying to figure out ways to take over Wakanda. Like, we know who you are now. We know what you want. Like, don't you think we're gonna take steps to make sure that you don't get close again? Like, we're
There's
not
probably
gonna
some
let you.
people who would have wanted him to like have a redemption arc of some kind, but I think that's also a problem. I don't think everybody needs a redemption arc. He was what he
Right.
was.
Exactly. Like, again, much as I love Batman, that's my favorite comic book character. We don't need everybody to, like, all the villains to be treated like Arkham villain, because it's like, yeah, it makes no sense in movies. It would make absolutely, it makes as little sense as possible in comic books to begin with. So in movies, it would make it worse. Than, like,
Yeah, I've never hated it, but yeah, I have said they've gone too far. Like we didn't kill Luthor in Superman.
no, and that makes
Um,
sense because, and he's gonna go away. He might get out. He might reestablish him. But Luther, being the person that he is, he's kind of realistic in that there are some people who have the means and the power to get away with shit even though they shouldn't, and people find themselves trusting and believing in them even though they like don't want what he's giving because he's not doing anything for you. He's doing it for himself, and he can give a fuck about you. But you put him in office for another 4 years, and fuck everybody else. Sorry.
What's
Talk
good,
about that
Lefo?
here.
See you there.
I will let you. Different story. Although y'all did put him in office in the comic book, god damn it.
I mean, yeah. Yeah, shout out to Lefo in the chat. So yeah, like I appreciate the way they chose to handle him, the way it's done. Again, it doesn't ruin the movie for me. I just think there's some small tweaks you could have done to make his again, in wrestling terms, to keep him strong in his loss. But on the whole, it works fine. I'm into the movie. I'm into the resolution.
Yeah. No.
I don't know what it me. I admittedly am not super hyped for Doom War or whatever the fuck that thing is called, but we'll see how Doomsday. Oh, Avengers Doomsday. Yeah. But we'll see. I'm I dig this movie. I had seen somebody had said something like, how would I put this? It's nice. Again, it was nice to get something this standalone because it's in its own universe. Again, I still think the idea of how connected Marvel is way overblown. Plenty of their movies are standalone. They don't need. This is in its own universe, and that's cool. I don't know how much I care to see. I need to see other Marvel movies take place in their own universe. It might be interesting though if you want to start going that route. I don't know. Because I see like a coworker was like, "Oh, with the Superman movie, maybe they're not gonna have us connected a universe or something. They're gonna do standalone." I was like, "You've not been paying any fucking attention because these are definitely gonna be a universe of movies, and there's nothing wrong with that as long as you do it well."
Yeah. No. I just hope they don't mess up Doom.
Doom sucks. I said it.
He does, but yeah, that's the point. He's a shitty guy. Like, cause can't you imagine like they bring Doom in, and then he breaks out Zemo, and they both go clubbing.
I don't know if they have that kind of relationship, but it
You
could.
can have that scene like you had in like Captain America with a soldier. And they're just chilling in a club. Like, yeah. So let's figure out how
Falcon
we're
and the
gonna
Winter
fuck
Soldier.
these people up. You don't remember the
They
scene,
could.
the meme that everybody kept making of Baron Zemo dancing in the
Yeah, it was
club?
Falcon and the Winter Soldier, wasn't it?
Yeah, I said Captain America and Winter Soldier because, of course, at the end they changed
Yeah.
the name.
You could. It's funny.
But no, like Doom is a Lex Luthorish type character where you can continue to bring him back. Like you don't need to one off him because he can have agency and being involved in different things. Just like Luthor, as a villain, yeah, he's horrible, but he's also done some things to help at times using his power. So you need some Marvel. To me, needs some sustainable villains. I don't think they need to kill like. That's one area where the X Men would be good for these movies is that you could establish Magneto as a sustainable villain because you know for all the bad
Is
logically he's you know and for the most part Marvel's villains have been those like for all the bad they are almost all of them have had a point like that you can kind of like argue might be right or wrong, but yeah, they'll murder everybody. So, like, you can have somebody hang around. You can have a couple. And not everybody, just a couple. Again, I don't want it to be an Arkham Nine. You know.
Sure. And you don't need to be because the movies are released on such a cadence where,
Right.
I mean, like, even if you keep a villain alive, you're not going to see them again for a number of years before until the next movie comes, if even.
Right.
So I think they have more breathing room for it not to be as much of a problem. Like, I don't think they needed to be killing them all off so quickly. You could have left them alone because, like, I don't know, pick any random villain from like an Iron Man movie. Like, when were you really going to see them again? Like 5 years later, maybe. It's fine. Because in the meantime, you'd have other movies in complete other parts of the universe, so you're not going to see them again. Uh, that is a benefit that movies have that the comics don't. Real quick, it was a little weird to me, but you know what? Grimm's beard kind of grew on me. I kind of like the stone
I
beard.
actually like the fact that they let the hair grow out like that. That's kind of a cool touch.
I don't know if they've done that in the comics before, but I dug it. It kind of reminded me of something they did in the Milestone books with a similar character. So I was into it. It was cute. Um, Again, this is where my not being an FF fan and reading a ton of books might hurt me. But I recall thinking that Franklin seems to be some little mixture of, well, Franklin Richard is himself, obviously, but also his sister Valeria. Because at the end, we see this suggestion that Franklin is like really fucking smart. I think his mother's like reading him some books, and Herbie's like suggesting some higher level thing, and she's like, "Yeah, he's already read that. Let's have some fun or whatever."
Right.
For those who don't know, I mean, like in the books, you have Franklin Richards, and you also have his younger sister Valeria, who, while she doesn't really have powers, she's incredibly intelligent, often seen as more intelligent than her father, Reed. And also, she has this relationship with Doctor Doom where I do not know where the fuck it comes from. I've just gotten used to it, but apparently, Doom is her godfather. So you often see this sort of like, even though Doom is this arrogant, annoying dick, he's always like weirdly kind of nice to Valeria because they have like some weird family relationship. I shouldn't even say nice because sometimes he's a dick to her too. But like,
I mean, he's Doctor Doom.
yeah, nice isn't quite the word. He is protective of her in a sense, as a godfather would be, even when he's being kind of annoying about it. Like I'm thinking back to this story we got recently where, comic shit. Basically, Reed had to like trap her in time for a second to save her. Whatever. I'm not going to get into the whole plot. It made more sense than that. But she's basically kind of trapped for a little bit, and Doom comes over, and Doom is fucking mad because he's like, how dare you put Valeria in this kind of danger? You're doing this to my goddaughter, and it turns into like a whole fucking situation. Yeah, I say that to say in this movie, in the end credit scene where we see Doom with Franklin, and we saw that Franklin's apparently intelligent. I was like, I wonder, like, do I not know enough about the characters, or have they just kind of like folded in Valeria's character into Franklin's as well for the sake of efficiency? Like, is he just supposed to be a combined version of both of those characters?
Could be.
In which case, he would be the one who has that sort of godfatherish relationship with Doom. I don't know.
That would be kind of
But that
funny.
is what I was thinking about watching that.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, even though we're getting Doomsday first, I'm curious if we're ever going to get any background on their relationship, Doom and Richards. Because
True.
other movies had always made, at least the original movie, had made the attempt to make the connection between them and stuff like that, being former like classmates or worked at the same place or whatever, things like that. I'm very curious to see if they do that.
I mean, yeah, I guess he's just sort of vaguely referenced here, so we don't really know. And then again, in the cutscene, we skipped ahead a number of years, so it's like, you
Right.
know, like I'm mentioning the Godfather thing. It's presumable that already happened during that time skip. So I'm like, yeah. I'm curious what Doom's relationship is with the Fantastic Family here, because I was like, huh, he seems. Again, this is one of the differences between the books and the movies. Sometimes you have one character in the movie that serves a function some other character had in the books. Same thing with Shalla-Bal, right? Like you look at her origin story in the movie, it's basically just Norrin Rad's origin story folded on top of her, so she has the same function. So I suppose we'll see. If that is the case, then I might have to argue it's sexist to eliminate a female character and just using a male
Yeah.
one. But whatever.
Yeah. Maybe she shows up later. I mean, we don't know what type of time jump is going to happen too between Doomsday and this movie too, because even though Doomsday's coming sometime next year, we don't know where these characters are going to be because they're not going to be seen in the main movies. Like, what do we have coming up next? Is it Doomsday?
Pretty sure I don't think we have anything coming up
Like
until
as far as
Doomsday. Yeah.
movies?
Pretty sure.
Uh, Spider Man,
Spider-Man, what
Brand New Day.
is it?
Apparently,
I don't-
Spider Man is supposed to be out.
Brand new day
Let me see. Of course, this search may be just. Yeah, it's scheduled for July 31st.
next year. I didn't even know. That shows you how out of the loop I am with the movies. I guess I didn't even know that was confirmed. I thought that was like a rumor or something.
I would have thought we weren't getting the Spider Man movie for another couple of years.
Damn, you're right. July 30th. What? How the fuck that has a release date and I don't have Shang-Chi 2 yet? Why don't I get what I want? The hell? And I guess Born Again is getting its season 2. Vision Quest?
Yeah, I knew about the Vision.
I'm glad. Where is my Shang-Chi 2? It's been long enough. Whatever, fine. Okay, I guess we do have a couple of MCU
Don't worry,
projects
you'll get
in the
that
interim.
before you get the Blade movie.
The MCU will reboot before we get a Blade movie.
Right. In fact, the
Uh,
X Men will be here before we get a Blade movie.
you saying that makes me a little nervous. I mean, maybe it's the only way to do, because I know for years we've been asking like, how the hell are you going to bring the X-Men into this movie? And I know we've clearly established multiverses and all kinds of madness. Maybe that will happen, and then we'll get this big ass movie, and then we'll walk out of the wreckage with this smashed together universe that has more things in it. I don't know if that works for me, but also I can't think of a way to do it that's not obnoxious. So I guess we just have to bite the bullet and take it, and then move on.
We'll see. We'll see, but yeah.
I mean, we have shit. You're
Put it this
probably
way,
right
we're
because
supposed to
we've
get
already
X Men in 2028. That's the tentative. Yeah.
we have already had the X-Men teased in that Marvels movie. So I guess you could argue they've already established that they're doing that at the end.
Perhaps.
Did you see Marvels? Shit.
Uh,
Probably not, right?
nah.
I take back what I said.
No. At this point, like you said, I'm not trying to watch them all in a row anymore, and I'm like not breaking my neck to see like certain ones I still did. Like I wanted to see Fantastic Four. Like other ones, not that I have no interest, but they aren't priorities. And you have to remember at the time that like the before now, my life was not in the place where Marvel movies were a priority. So you have to forgive me for missing certain things.
Sure.
'Cause,
Just a real quick reminder, because I'm sure a lot of assholes didn't watch the Marvels. I'm just kidding. You're not assholes for that. You're assholes for different reasons. At the end of the Marvels, what's her name? Monica Rambeau ends up in a different universe, and she is awoken to find herself in the care of, among other people, Beast. So I was saying that, like, I mean, we didn't see much of that universe. It's possible, given how Beast was acting, that that universe is the one that has what we think of as typical X-Men. So maybe I haven't seen a reference since that movie. So it is possible they've already planted that seed and we'll bring it back. Although that's kind of awkward because now I'm like, yeah, it is weird how they gave us this big X-Men tease and have said nothing about it for years, but go off.
yeah. No, I feel like they're not going to say anything about X Men. Um, you're just going to get hit with something. Like I think it was. That's why I think announcing the cast for Doomsday was kind of bad because you got the X Men people hyped. You put in all the original X Men movie people in that movie.
I forgot about that. I don't like that. I mean, I don't know. I guess it's nice we get to say like a weird goodbye or something. I feel like we already did that with Deadpool, but whatever.
No, you can just say goodbye to everybody now. You,
I look. I grew up with those movies. I love them. You know, do your thing. I guess.
you getting like Nightcrawler back. You know, you getting Jean. You're gonna get the original Magnus.
That is weird. But, yeah. I mean, look. There is a point which the magic of comics, at least DC and Marvel, is that they're these big interconnected universes. But the problem with it is sometimes it gets kind of messy, and I think that's why I'm feeling so about Avengers Doomsday. I'm like, this just sounds messy as fuck. But
Yeah, it's the way that it's been laid out. Like again with the cast announcement, and you getting like all these people. It's like y'all really trying to do an Infinity War level movie with all these characters from the past, and pretty much no. I mean, maybe you don't need the setup. I don't know. I feel like you should have some setup because we're not getting anything. Our setup for Doomsday was him saying hi to a kid.
unless it happens in Spider-Man, no, not really.
You can't make it happen in Spider Man.
Yeah, well, yeah, I don't see any. I don't know what else on the horizon could set it
And
up
there's no
before that.
TV show that's coming out that you could do it in. Like,
Granted, I said earlier in this podcast that you can just jump into comics in the middle. I don't know how true that is for major event comics. So, but whatever. I mean, yeah, like to your point, when they mentioned the big old cast, we had that big, to me, obnoxious thing where they were like switching all the chairs around or whatever it was. In that video, I was like, this feels like a lot, bro.
yeah, like, and plus, this is like closing the door on the multiverse.
It's
Kind of weird.
I don't want to, leave the podcast sounding down on the MCU because I just said, hey, I think people are overly down on the MCU. I think a lot of it is good, and I like this movie. But it is ironic that the next big thing we're doing feels like an issue to me. Although, to be fair, even as a comic book reader, I tend not to like big crossover events. I tend to like the standalone stuff more. So that might be my taste.
Yeah, they should have just
Climbing in there.
cast Kang and move forward with that.
I was available,
You don't have
but
the
they didn't
muscles, sir.
ask.
You don't have the muscles.
I would get them. That's how Disney works. They hire you and then they just crack the whip until you get jacked. You always see those like training videos of like the actors and actresses. What you don't see is the person with the Mickey Mouse on the side with a gun pointed at them. Come on, you got one more push up in you. Let's go. But yeah, I'm hopeful. I'm still in the camp of being more interested in what DC is gonna do. But I mean, hey, 2025, I ended up liking a Fantastic Four movie. I heard somebody say it was the best Fantastic Four movie ever made. I don't know that the bar was that high, so I don't see the point of that statement. But true, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, but no, Fantastic Four is a great movie. If you haven't seen it, please go see it. It's a really good. As a movie, don't just think of it as. Stop thinking of it as like, how does this connect to the MCU? Go see it as a movie, please. 'Cause that's part of the problem. Y'all don't watch these movies as a movie anymore.
Stop asking like, is such and such a movie gonna save the MCU? I mean, again, I don't think the MCU needs saving, but like, I don't feel like we need to be viewing each project in that. Like, whenever like Marvel is having, to me, bad books at the moment. I don't look at every book like, is this a book that's gonna save Marvel Comics? Let's just judge them individually and then move on with our lives.
Yeah.
Go Fantastic Horse.
And Reed's your favorite character. Stop. It's okay.
Of these assholes, it's Thing. It's definitely the Thing. Not even close.
It's Reed. You and Reed, you have a bond, and you just don't like to admit it.
The fact that we're both assholes doesn't mean we're friends.
It's okay. No, it's like it's more than just the assholes. Like, if you were in a comic book, you would be Cardiac Richards, Reed's brother. Come on.
Oh, that's brutal. Because then I wouldn't be able to have Sue. Shout out to what's her name, Vanessa Kirby, for having the last name
Reed's
Kirby. This
brother, you
movie
should always be a dick in the Dick Reed Richards tradition and Steeler. Yeah.
This movie was such a
stolen
love
before.
letter. Namor, yeah. This movie is such a love letter to Jack Kirby that even Vanessa's name
Yeah, that's
matches.
funny. I didn't think about that. Like, is she like some distant relative? That's funny. That is very, very funny. But
I
go see
should,
Fantastic Four.
yeah.
Do you have any comic book suggestions? And if so, please let me know. Let the people know.
I think the thing most people talk about is Jonathan Hickman's Fantastic Four run, which I've read some of and is pretty good so far. I bought Fantastic Four Full Circle by Alex Ross. I'm not gonna lie, as a non-Fantastic Four guy, I don't like the story, but I bought it because the art is fucking amazing. That shit is, oh my god. I'll give links to those later, but don't expect as many links as the Superman thing because these aren't my guys. Even though Sue's bad as hell, but these aren't my guys. But there's a couple for you. Oh, and Ryan North's the current Fantastic Four book, ironically, is really good. I hate admitting that, but it is. So I'll give a link to that too.
There you go. Suggestions of the First Family from their biggest fan.
Yep.
All right. So, thank you guys for checking this out. Of course, as usual, I will post this on YouTube so people can go back and watch the replay. Appreciate all the people who've actually been going back and watching it on YouTube. It'll also be available here in the archives, so you can watch it again if you want, or you can point people to it if you want someone to see it. Have links in the description to how to find Cardiac, so you can check him out. Please make sure to go check him out on Twitch. And bug him. I guess you don't have any other social media because you don't like being bothered by people, which I can understand.
Nope. I've eliminated more of them over the years.
I understand the sentiment. Trust me, I do. But yeah, So go support his channel, and definitely want to do that if you're into comic books, because he does read comic books and discuss comic books while also playing and streaming video games. So you get a good variety, and you also get some art. You get to see some of his talents. It's a very nice, balanced channel to check out. Definitely. But,
Thank you.
that is going to be it. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you've seen the movie, please comment. Let us know what you think about the movie. If you haven't seen it, please go. Also, if you haven't seen it, why the fuck were you listening to us? We just spoiled the movie for you. We ruined your enjoyment, and you shouldn't have let us do that. Seriously. But yeah. Alright, so we'll see you next time, because gosh, probably don't have a spoiler cast for a year now. No, we are going to have another spoiler cast, because I'm going to satiate this fool, and I'm going to go and watch Eyes of Wakanda right now. And then if he wants to do a spoiler cast on that, we can discuss that. And what else is coming as far as the Black Panther universe is concerned. So, yeah.
Damn right.
That's it. Alright, everybody. Take it easy. Peace.